It started with an email, the same way most mornings in Serenity Grove started. Claire, dear, could you please bring the meeting minutes template to the board session today? And maybe pick up some pastries on your way? The ones from that little bakery, not the cheap ones. We have important guests. Signed, Karen Langley, President, Serenity Grove Homeowners Association. As if I was her personal secretary instead of a homeowner who'd paid the same ridiculous dues as everyone else for 8 long years. I stare at my laptop screen, the cursor blinking like it was judging me. Outside my window, the neighborhood looked perfect, emerald lawns trimmed to military precision. American flags waving at exactly 45-degree angles, per section 4.2 of the rules. Of course. And not a single trash can visible past 8 a.m. That's what they sell you in the brochure. Peaceful suburban living. What they don't mention is the velvet dictatorship running it all from Karen's McMansion with the oversized fountain. I smoothed my blouse anyway, the same way I always did, and headed to the kitchen to make my own coffee. Because heaven forbid I showed up without the right pastries. That's what they don't tell you about HOA life. How to swallow disrespect so it looks like neighborly cooperation. I'd been here since the first foundations were poured. Back when Serenity Grove was just dirt lots and promises, and the developers still called everyone by name. I had a voice then. I was the paralegal who volunteered to help draft the initial CC and RS covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Just to make sure everything is buttoned up, I said at the time. They all smiled, patted my shoulder, and said, "You're a lifesaver, Claire," while I quietly slipped in clause after clause protecting resident rights, landscaping design copyrights under my little LLC, and those beautiful reversion triggers that no one bothered to read past page 3. But somewhere between the first special assessment and Karen's coronation as board president, I became invisible, not evicted, just absorbed. The woman who helps with paperwork. The one they called when they needed someone to organize the 4th of July potluck or take notes during violation hearings. People don't notice the doormat once they've wiped their feet enough times. Karen had that signature smirk when I arrived at the clubhouse that afternoon. The one that said she enjoyed wielding power the way other people enjoyed wine. "Oh, Claire, you made it. Just set the pastries over there. Honey, and we'll need extra copies of the agenda, double-sided. Please. The developer reps are coming next week, and we want to look professional." She didn't even look up from her phone while she said it. Too busy typing another violation notice to poor Mr. Henderson for his excessive tomato plants. The other board members, a retired accountant who nodded at everything Karen said, and a soccer mom who was terrified of being fined herself, just smiled politely. I arranged the pastries like a good little helper while my mind wandered to the folder on my home computer labeled insurance policy. 46 separate filings and amendments over the years. Each one time-stamped, notarized, recorded at the county office. Every time Karen pushed a new ridiculous rule. No political signs bigger than 6 by 12 inches. Holiday lights must be white only. Grass height strictly between 2.5 and 3.5 inches. I updated my protections. Because when people treat you like the help, they never think you'll build yourself an escape hatch. The meeting droned on with the usual nonsense. Mrs. Peterson got fined $250 for her bird feeder being too visible. Someone's trash bin was spotted at 8:17 a.m. Karen preened like a queen doling out justice. We must maintain standards. People. That's why residents love us. I took the minutes in neat handwriting, smiling the whole time. Inside, I was cataloging every overreach, every violation of the very documents I'd helped write. The ones that said if the board attempted to alienate common property or failed to act in residents' best interest, certain rights and designs would revert. Then Karen dropped the bomb casually, like she was announcing a new flowerbed policy. And for our big announcement, We're exploring a partnership with Pinnacle Developments. They're very excited about our central green space. It can mean major upgrades for everyone. New clubhouse, better amenities, and of course, significant value increase for all properties. She said it with that glowing smile, the one she practiced in a mirror. But I caught the flicker in her eyes. The greed. This wasn't about amenities. This was about cashing out the community park and clubhouse, the heart of Serenity Grove, for luxury townhomes. Their partnership meant kickbacks for the board while the rest of us lost our open space. The room buzzed with excitement from the sheep. I just nodded and kept writing. But later that night, alone at my desk, I opened that dusty folder. Pinnacle Diligence Trigger.docx. I set a little reminder to pop up in 3 days. Because coffee gets cold, but properly filed reversion clauses, they age like fine wine waiting for idiots to get greedy. The email from Karen arrived at 7:03 a.m. the following Tuesday. Subject line, exciting next chapter for Serenity Grove. She had attached a pixelated JPEG of champagne flutes and written 3 full paragraphs about how our nimble community vision had attracted major attention from Pinnacle Developments. Everyone started buzzing like a damn bee farm. Retirees pacing their driveways with Bluetooth earpieces. Soccer moms whispering about property value spikes like they'd already booked European cruises in their heads. No one noticed I was already at the clubhouse early that morning. No one ever did. Karen strutted out of her office. Yes, she had a private president's suite in the clubhouse, tossed a manila folder on the folding table I used as a desk, and didn't even look me in the eye. Print 6 copies, double-sided, color tab dividers. Oh, and book the big room for Thursday. Need it pre-staged by 8 a.m. Don't screw it up this time. Claire. Then she walked off, already pulling some poor retired accountant into her cloud of Chanel no. 5. Self-importance. And hairspray. I opened the folder. Internal strategy briefings. Fiscal summaries. Site plans for the upgrades. Most of it cribbed from old files I'd archived months ago, then quietly updated when the board forgot to save version history. Funny thing about people who assume you're stupid, they don't realize they're handing you the ammo. That morning, as I fed the printer 32-pound stock and punched holes like my life depended on it, I watched the Pinnacle team arrive. 5 of them, decked out in sleek black suits and the kind of sunglasses that say we just flew in from somewhere important. They walked right past me. Not a nod, not a smile, not even a blink. I could have been a coat rack. I held the door open anyway. It's what we do. We smile through the erasure. By noon, Karen was holed up with them in the glass-walled meeting room, waving her arms like she invented community living. I kept refilling the sparkling water and wiping down surfaces between breaks. I could hear bits of their questions through the frosted panels. Terms like attribution of common area designs, licensing constraints, reversion triggers. I recognized all of it. I wrote most of it. But to them, I was still just the one who forgot to refill the creamer. No problem. When I returned to my little table, I opened my email and typed one line to myself. Subject, reminder. Body, trigger IP clause upon diligence. I hit send. A clean digital breadcrumb pinged. Funny how a single clause filed years ago, buried in a backdated agreement, can sit there dormant like a fuse, waiting, watching, just like I had been. That night, as the clubhouse emptied and the glow of Karen's private office dimmed, I stayed behind, refilled the printer tray, organized the presentation clicker. Then I reopened that Word document for part 1, scrolled to the clause at the bottom. Read it once. Read it twice. In the event of commercialization, sale, or material change in governance of common areas, all rights revert to Claire Bennett, primary designer and retained licensor. Attribution omitted or board status altered prior to finalization triggers immediate reversion. Still there. Still signed. Still mine. The first time I explained the stormwater drainage redesign to the original developer, he blinked twice, nodded slowly, and said, "Okay, but will it look good in the sales brochure?" That was 8 years ago. We were still in portable offices sharing Wi-Fi with the construction crew. He had vision. I'll give him that. But he thought landscaping was literally planting flowers. I was brought on as a volunteer. That's what the minutes said. Temporary admin adjacent. But I knew what they were building or trying to build. Their drainage ran like a lawnmower full of pudding. The irrigation logic was bloated. The eco-designs were stitched together like a toddler's blanket. So I stayed late. Sketched cleaner plans on the back of scrap code printouts. Ran optimization tests on my old laptop in a break room while waiting for security to do their midnight sweep. No one asked me to. No one thanked me either. But after the 5th time, the developer looked at me with that deer-in-headlights look. I offered him a deal. "I'll write you the core structure," I said. "Under my LLC. You can license it. No charge for now, but I retain authorship and ownership." He blinked again. Faster. "Wait, you have an LLC?" "Yeah, I had an LLC, Bennett Core Landscapes. Registered 2 years prior. Quiet little entity, just in case someone underestimated me hard enough." I slid him the papers. He signed. Over the next 18 months, I wrote the spine of the entire community system. Water rate optimization, error-tolerant drainage paths, recursive zoning, all mine. Each module attributed properly. Each line time-stamped. Patent drafts saved, cross-referenced, filed one by one. 46 in total. Each one under my name, not the associations. Every time someone said, "Great job, board," I smiled and updated the ledger. Every time they posted a neighborhood update on the app without a whisper of credit, I opened my patent management portal and clicked continue. I wasn't chasing applause. I was building armor. The week the suits came back, Karen swaggered through the clubhouse hallway like she'd already cashed the check. She started doing this thing, adjusting her pearl necklace in every reflective surface like she was about to be interviewed by HGTV. The other board members followed her around like ducklings, carrying binders they didn't understand, laughing a little too hard at her half-jokes about finally getting rid of those ugly community benches. One afternoon, she passed my table, clapped a hand on it like it was a jukebox, and grinned. "No need for you in the prep meetings. Claire, we're talking big picture development, not admin logistics." I didn't blink, just clicked my mouse and smiled. "Of course, Karen." Inside, my blood curdled, not because I was surprised, but because the fool said it loud enough for the junior counsel from Pinnacle to hear. And that kid, he looked concerned. Not enough to say something, but enough to make a note. I'd seen that look before. Paperwork panic. They just realized the crown jewel was built on sand, and no one brought a shovel. Behind the scenes, the dance had begun. Pinnacle's legal team sent over the standard diligence packet, ownership claims, IP chain of custody, contributor logs. They wanted names, version histories, signatures, attribution breakdowns. All the things we should have had buttoned up if we weren't a retirement frat house pretending to be a professional association. Karen, of course, didn't flinch. She printed off some out-of-date org charts, scribbled board team across a few architecture maps, and called it a day. When the head of Pinnacle Council asked point-blank for design records, she actually shrugged and said, "It's all ours. We built it in-house. Nothing external." I was in the break room pretending to microwave oatmeal while she said it. She didn't even check if I was listening. Later that evening, as I cleared out coffee cups the board had abandoned like toddlers in a daycare, my phone buzzed. Private inbox. Usto. Subject line. Portfolio inquiry detected. I stared at the screen. It had begun. Some poor junior analyst on Pinnacle's side had entered one of my patent numbers into their diligence database and triggered the notification system I'd set up 3 years ago. Every time a third party searched my portfolio, or reviewed licensor metadata. I got a ping. I sat down at my table. Quiet clubhouse. Dim lights. Just the hum of air vents and the distant echo of Karen's laughter 2 rooms over, probably telling them how tight our community vision was. I opened my files. 46 patents. All clean. Each one with attribution lines that read, Designer, Claire Bennett. Owner, Bennett Core Landscapes, LLC. Licenser of record, Claire Bennett. Active. I didn't smile. I didn't rage. I just exhaled. They were finally looking. And when they got past the PowerPoint theater and pearl necklace confidence, they'd find me all over everything. Like a ghost with receipts. They paused the meetings. That's how it started. Pinnacle's legal team had been nodding along all week, sipping overpriced cold brew, letting Karen run her mouth like she was the second coming of Martha Stewart. But when they asked for a full breakdown of the stormwater and irrigation stack, and Karen handed over a 3-page summary with half the words spelled wrong and 0 attribution, something shifted. They didn't argue. They didn't even frown. They just said, "We'll circle back," and disappeared into the war room. That afternoon, the clubhouse was quieter than usual. No one said why the meetings had stopped. Karen kept pacing in her office, phone glued to her ear, trying to sound calm while sweat stained through her pastel blazer. I kept my routine, refilled the lobby candy jar, restocked toner, filed mail like I wasn't being searched in a database 1,000 miles away. Then the elevator dinged. The lead Pinnacle counsel returned early. He wasn't smiling. Walked right past Karen's outstretched hand, straight to the glass meeting room, and asked a single question loud enough for half the floor to hear. "Who is Claire Bennett?" The silence hit harder than a car crash. Karen actually turned around like she was expecting to see a different Claire Bennett standing behind her. When she realized I hadn't vanished in a mist, she gave the dumbest laugh I've ever heard. "Oh, Claire, that's just our volunteer secretary. We got her on admin." Counsel didn't even blink. He opened a folder, slid a printout across the table, and tapped his pen. "This is a list of 46 registered patents," he said, "filed over 8 years, all related to community irrigation and landscaping architecture, all tagged to Bennett Core Landscapes, which she owns and which licenses your core systems. Not the association. Not you." Karen's face went white like she'd seen a ghost crawl out of her violation ledger. "That can't be right," she stammered. "She's not even she just takes notes." "Apparently," counsel replied, "she also owns your green space." I didn't move. I didn't speak. Just stood there, silently watching from the edge of the hallway as the walls began to fold in on Karen. For years, I'd lived beneath her smirks and sideways comments. "Can you run copies? Are you even technical? You're sweet. Claire, but stay in your lane." Turns out the lane led straight to her throne. In that moment, I felt it. Not joy, not revenge, just power. Cool, quiet, undeniable. I was no longer invisible. I didn't need to say anything. The paper said it for me. The systems were mine. Always had been. They just finally bothered to read the footnotes. They summoned me like a problem to be fixed. I got the email at 7:19 a.m. Subject line, "Urgent attribution clarification." The kind of tone that says, "We thought you were a paperweight. Turns out you're a legal bomb." They didn't ask. They didn't say, "Please, just be in the conference room in 10. I took my time. The air in the hallway was thick, like everyone suddenly remembered I existed and didn't know how to look me in the eye. Karen was already inside when I arrived, face flushed, collar damp, mumbling legal terms she clearly didn't understand. The board sat stiffly in the corner like kids waiting for the principal. And then there were the Pinnacle people, stone-faced and done with the theater. I walked in holding one manila folder. Sat down. No notes. No laptop. Just a folder. Pinnacle's lead counsel cleared his throat. "MS. Bennett, we're trying to reconcile a discrepancy. Your name appears on all core designs, yet you're not listed in any association filings or executive notes. I didn't respond right away. Just opened the folder, pulled out the document, and placed it in the center of the table like I was sliding a chess piece. This is my licensing agreement, I said. It grants the association non-exclusive rights to use the irrigation and landscaping models developed under Bennett Core Landscapes. Rights are contingent on attribution and my continued involvement. Clause 6.3 outlines reversion triggers, including exclusion from acknowledgement in material events, like, say, a commercial sale. No one moved. The only sound was Karen's ridiculous swallow. Loud, panicked, almost cartoonish. Counsel read it once, then again slower. His eyes stopped mid-page. Clause 7 names you sole licensor. Yes, I replied. And this clause, he pointed again, means if you are terminated or not credited, the association loses rights to all 46 patents. Correct. The board inhaled sharply. Karen started to speak, but counsel cut her off with a glare that could have stopped a lawnmower. This entire deal, he said flatly, rests on her terms. I leaned back. No gloating, no revenge grin, just posture. I've been treated like furniture for 8 years. So if I made sure to sit like mahogany, solid, unmoving, worth more than they thought. They scrambled, offered to revise, apologize, clarify. I let them. What I didn't tell them yet was that I'd anticipated this, that I'd drafted the licensing clause with 3 independent attorneys, updated it annually, and filed confirmation letters with every county submission. I'd even paid for a third-party audit of the design ownership trail 2 months ago, just in case. Because when people treat you like a fixture, they assume you'll never move. But fixtures can hold buildings together or crack the foundation. In the chaos, no one asked how long I planned it. No one asked why I'd never said a word. And honestly, I wouldn't have answered. Ice in the veins. No need for heat when the paper already burns. Karen cracked. It didn't happen all at once. It was a slow, glorious unraveling. First came the frantic denial, then the raised voice, then the sheer desperation leaking out of every pore like bad perfume. I was walking back to my table when I heard her bark across the hallway. She stole those designs. She was just a volunteer. She took notes. She didn't invent anything. Half the clubhouse froze. Even the intern who never looked up from his dual monitors glanced over. Pinnacle Counsel didn't flinch. Neither did the board. They'd already done the audit. They'd reviewed the timestamps, the authorship logs, the LLC filings, and the chain of custody for every submission. My name was everywhere. Hers wasn't. She's the only valid designer of record, counsel said as flatly as if reading off a parking ticket. Karen's mouth moved, but no words came out. In the silence that followed, I walked past the glass wall of the conference room and made brief eye contact with her. She looked like a woman watching her entire empire of fines and power go down with her retirement portfolio on board. A few minutes later, she stepped out, approached me gently, no smugness, no pretense, and said the one sentence I never expected to hear from her mouth. Claire, could we discuss new terms for the license? I didn't blink. Of course. We met in the small boardroom. No suits this time. Just me, Karen, and the echoes of panic from the other room. I slid over a new copy of the license agreement. Clean, updated, merciless. Terms, 2.4% royalty on all use retroactive to the first commercial release. Formal title, Community Design Director. $437,000 in back pay based on consultant equivalent market rates over 8 years. Equity vesting at 1.5% in the acquiring entity locked at closing. Karen looked up at me after the third page. Her hands were trembling slightly, but she didn't argue. We'll get it signed. I nodded once and left her there to process it. On the way back to my table, I stopped by her office. She wasn't inside, probably off somewhere trying to make a lawyer believe in magic. Her door was half open, light still on, that dumb motivational poster about community first staring back like it had any clue what real community was. I pulled a sticky note from my bag, wrote 3 words in neat block letters. No flourish, no threat, just a warning she should have read years ago. Check attribution before disrespect. I placed it dead center on her door and walked away. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt done, like the weight wasn't mine anymore. For years they had fed on my silence like it was permission. But silence isn't surrender. It's storage. And eventually it spills over with receipts. Let the next woman behind the folding table know. Documentation is armor. Attribution is leverage. And people like Karen, they never see it coming until their name's not on the plans and yours is engraved in every line. They move forward, but on my terms. The partnership that once had Karen chest thumping through every corridor was now a quieter affair. Negotiated behind closed doors where my name was printed in bold. Every document that crossed the table had a new column. Bennett license clauses required compliance. The Pinnacle team didn't question a single item. They knew what was at stake. They'd seen the patents, the filings, the chain of ownership lined with my signature. They weren't just buying amenities anymore. They were licensing me. Final agreement done. All 46 patents still mine. The irrigation systems, the landscaping terms, the attribution clauses preserved. The clause that once sat quietly at the bottom of a forgotten document was now front and center, the spine of a $210 million transaction. The board didn't say much at the signing, just avoided eye contact like dogs that know they chewed the wrong furniture. I let them squirm. They got their exit, but they'd always know who enabled it. As for Karen, she showed up late to the final review meeting, sleeves wrinkled, voice smaller. The association handed her a new title in a stiff envelope, Director of Compliance Outreach. I don't think she understood what it meant until she logged into the internal portal and saw my name, Community Design Director, 3 levels above hers. I was already removed from org chart permissions, which meant I'd be reviewing any future rules tied to my logic. She passed me in the hallway and didn't say a word. I didn't either. No smirk. No satisfaction, just stillness. A reminder that real power doesn't need an announcement. It already has a desk nameplate. The Pinnacle team called me into a separate meeting that afternoon. No Karen, no board, just 3 of their lead innovation officers and the head of planning. They asked about my roadmap. I outlined the next-gen iteration of the community framework, 3 steps ahead of where the association had dared to dream. Midway through my explanation, one of them leaned forward and asked something no one at my own HOA had ever thought to say. Would you consider joining our design advisory board? I paused for half a second, then smiled. Yes. They handed me a packet. Stock, title, voting rights. They didn't need to convince me. They'd already done the one thing that mattered. They saw me. Later that evening, I stood by the window in the executive wing, my new badge still clipped to my belt, my nameplate already mounted on the door. Outside, board members loaded boxes into their golf carts, and the old president plaque was being pried off Karen's door. A janitor wheeled past, nodded at me like I belonged there, and I did. Not because someone gave me permission, because I documented my worth and waited until they needed it more than they feared it. That's how real change happens. Quiet, permanent, and with your name in every footer. The new community site launched on a Thursday. Sleek, minimal, all lowercase headlines and clean gradient buttons like every other HOA pretending to reinvent suburban living. But buried down at the bottom, smaller than the copyright notice just above the privacy policy, was the line that mattered. Core designs, Bennett Irrigation Protocol Series 1 to 46. No board attribution. No vague collective effort. Just the truth in font size 9. My name, my work, my terms. I didn't celebrate, didn't pop champagne, or post a humble brag on Nextdoor. I just stared at the screen for a moment, then closed the tab. That was enough, because I knew that for every developer who skimmed the site, for every resident reviewing documentation, for every analyst crawling through back-end specs, that line would linger. Bennett Designs. 46 patents. They'd have to whisper it in meetings now, cite it in proposals, explain it in future mergers. I didn't just leave a watermark. I left a wall, and they'd either build with it or bounce off of it trying. I moved offices the following week. New building, different floor. No more open bullpens or glass boxes for Karen to bark through. My new space was quiet. Clean window view, door that locked. Title on the plate, Community Design Director. Just below it, the logo of the new management entity. They got the systems. I got the control panel. They didn't ask me to give a speech. No press release. That was fine. I wasn't there for applause. I was there for authorship. And now I had it. One afternoon, while I was reviewing a proposed tweak to the irrigation stack, a junior board member, bright-eyed, nervous, knocked on my open door. MS. Bennett, Claire's fine. He shuffled in, holding a printout of one of the protocols I'd written 5 years ago. I was wondering, how did you pull that off? Like all of this? How'd you manage it? I looked at him for a long moment, not out of pride, out of memory of how long it took for someone to ask that question with anything other than suspicion. I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands, and gave him the real answer. I file things early, I said, especially people's assumptions. He blinked, then smiled. I nodded toward the stack of patent folders on the corner of my desk. Grab one. Read. Learn the shape of the loophole before someone tries to shove you through it. He did. He left. I turned back to my monitor. In the silence that followed, I let myself feel it. Not victory, not revenge, just weightlessness. They underestimated me for years. And now their entire neighborhood runs on the very thing they ignored. And all I had to do was keep the receipts.